This is Agricultural Research Council of Nigerian Television. My name is Joshua Isha. Welcome you to the program Back to Farm. The Department of Planning and Policy Coordination of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development recently held a stakeholders validation workshop on the enhanced food balance sheet. And today on Back to Farm, we will be sharing the workshop with the aim of enlightening Nigerians the recent data collection of Nigerian food balance sheet as it stands today. Before we go any further, let's ask this question: what is food balance sheet? A food balance sheet is a comprehensive compilation of a selected country's food supply during a specific period. The food balance sheet shows the food items for human consumption along with how it produced, used, imported, exported, and how it benefit the society per capita supply. The total quantity produced in a country added to the total quantity imported and adjusted to any change in stocks that may occur since the beginning of the reference period gives the supply available during that period. Take a look at the workshop.
The quantity of food that you produce that go to waste or losses, the one you can say you can't even account for as a result of pre-post harvest losses. So once you are able to get data in this environment, then you need to subtract certain things, because if you don't subtract certain things, you cannot have your balance. So you look at, for example, if I know what I have produced in a country, then I need to deflate, I need to remove what I've exported to another country. I need to remove, to some extent, what are the quantity that goes to seed, that goes to feed. So I need to put all these things together, so that at the end of the day, I will have an equation that has a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So if I have my equation, left-hand side, right-hand side, there should be an equivalent. There should be a balance. So at the end of the day, what I produce, when I remove what I export, what goes to waste or losses, what goes to seed or feed, I should be able to have zero at the end of the day. So I know that my left hand has now balanced with my right hand side. So it is a picture that shows if a country is actually food sufficient or not. And you know, when we talk about food security, we are talking about food availability. That is one of the major components of food security, and that is why the president declared the food security as a state of emergency, because is food available? Now, if food is available, is food accessible? There's a difference between availability and accessibility. Now, it's available and is accessible, and then it's affordable. Then when you put all this together, you say you are food secure. But if the food is available and it's not accessible, then we are food insecure. If the food is available and it's not affordable, it means we are food insecure. So we have some computations, just the left hand side and the right hand side. You will soon see the computation. Now, what is the history of food balancing? I said food balancing started in the 90s. It started in 1936. We don't need to bother ourselves so much about the history. In the 1936, when the world gathered, they tend to find out, let us compare the performance of countries. So they tend to look at, for example, what is Brazil doing in comparison to what is Venezuela is doing. So you just compare food situation of countries. That was in the 1936. The left-hand side must balance with the right-hand side. Otherwise, it's either you are food insecure or you are producing more than necessary. So we have the formula. You'll get to understand better. We have the P standing for production. So what are you actually producing in terms of maize, rice, beans, cereals, whatever you are producing, that is for P. Then we have the I. The I stands for imports. Imports. So because when you produce and you want to increase the volume of food in the silos, there is possibility for you to import food for another countries. Like there was a time that we are importing rice into Nigeria. So we increase our storage as a result of importation. So we are not looking at the indirect costs of importation at this level. We are only looking at the aggregate. What are you importing? What are you bringing? Because when you look at the nominal value of import and you consider that aspect, you may even discover that you are running at a loss. But we are not looking at the monetary aspect of what we import, but we are looking at the volume, the quantity of what you brought into a particular country. So when you add your production, the one you produce locally, with the one you import, and then you remove the changes in your stock. Maybe you have, thank God Mr. Amaji is here, maybe you have tonnage of grains in the reserve, all right? So now you are importing. There is a method that you have to be able to know what to have in your stock. Okay? So what you have last year in your stock, you need to remove it from what we are bringing in. Otherwise, you will think that it is still part of your production. So you have your production, you have the one you import, then you minus it from the one you have in the stock. That is that change in stock. And then you have the export, you have the feed, you have the food, other food processing, then you have the seed, you have the tourist food. The tourist food is probably some Nigerian came to Nigeria and they brought their own food. Or some Liberia, while coming to Nigeria, they brought their own food. That is a tourist food. It's not really common in Nigeria, but we have it. Then you have industrial use. You have the loss, and then you have the residual or other uses. So, those one from export to residual, you add them together. And then the one for production and import that make your stock, your availability to swell, you add them together. Then you minus the usage, the utilization, you minus them from what you have, then you should have zero. So when you look at it, how do you actually arrive at a good balance sheet? You need to look at your population. I think Nigeria National Population Commission is here. You can see the thinking of FAO bringing these experts together. I know we are over 212 million, according to the estimate provided by National Population Commission. So you look at your population, then you should be able to have a rough idea of what is going on with your population. Do you have more of a prevalence of undernourishment? Do you have more of waste? Wasting. You look at the nutritive content of what is being consumed in your country. You look at all those. Are people really rightly eating the right food, or they are just swallowing whatever they see? So then, these are the things that you put together that represent your food component. Okay? So once you get that, from your food component, you can now evaluate what exactly is the calories intake of the country. All right? So you look at the calorie. It is not just the quantity of the pounded yam you swallowed, but we are looking at the content within that pounded yam. Okay? So you look at the calories. It is these calories that will move towards your DES, dietary energy supply. And according to FAO, the dietary energy supply of a country should be at least 2,500 kilograms. All right? So with that 2,500, it means you are relatively okay. What you produce, you can see animal products, cereal, You can see the production, you can see the import, you can see the stock variation, the one is exported, and then you add them together, you have your total. Look at your losses, other uses. So when you subtract this from this, you have your food balance sheet. And then here now, for example, we are saying it that we are having 2,382 And this data is for China. It's not for Nigeria. So with these 3,108. 3,108. It tells us what? What does this? What's the meaning of this? It means China, one of the most populous nations in the world, is still food secure. We're going to see the case of Nigeria very soon. Of SUA and FBS, I've already explained what is the meaning of SUA, just supply and then utilization. Then what exactly do we need this for? Is to provide us the availability of consumption. Is food available or no? It tends to show also the changes that we're having in stock or in consumption. Okay. So these are the pillars of food balance sheets. We just need production data and then trade data, very important. Definition, component, calculations of food balance sheets. We see the methodology, the results, and then we now see the outputs. We have the output 1, which will tell you the table. We see the output 2. What do we mean by the output 2? The dietary energy supply that I just talked about. We look at the requirement, the self-sufficiency ratio, the import-dependent ratio, and then we look at the volume of wheat importation in Nigeria, and then we look at the partners. And then output 3, we show the food supply situation in Nigeria in terms of share of nutrient derived from some of the components. We see where are we actually deriving the major nutrients in food consumption in Nigeria. Is it from animal? Is it from grains? We will check that. And then we find out eventually what are the losses, what are the proportion, what are the cases of some commodity before we go into challenges, recommendations, and possibly implementation steps. I've already defined what food balance sheet is all about. It's just a picture to show you if you have food secure or not. And it's part of the SDG Goal 1 and Goal 2. And I've discussed with us that the major thing we need is data in the area of production, and then we will look at data in the area of utilization. What are the components? These are the components, the actual production, the trade, the stock, we have the seed. So this is the same formula that we've already discussed. This formula you do for your export, food, feed, seed, tourist food, industrial losses, and the red one, you always minus the red one from the green ones. That's the formula. And then what are the importance? With food balance sheets, you can see the food situation of the country. You can see if we are actually monitoring food security well or not. It tends to show the comparative advantage of dietary energy supply by countries. You can pick the one of Nigeria and compare with Uganda. You can compare with Kenya. You can also compare with China. And these are the advantages of food balancing. Then it also helps resource allocation and optimization. If you know that you are not food secure, then you can budget and possibly you can meet the Malabo declarations. So, and then the calculation of derived indicators, country performance, it helps us to be able to actually compute these indicators, particularly for the SDGs, like in the area of prevalence of undernourishment. You can use food balance sheets to compute that. Then you can see the country performance, how the country is doing. And then we also use it for statistical purposes, like data collaboration and synergy, and then strengthening data collection process. That is why we have different kind of stakeholders here that contributed towards the development of the food balance sheet. So this is the results that we have. This is Nigerian result. This result is just between 2014 and 2020. The data for 2021 was not available. That for 2022, because this report was put together last year, was not validated. So we use data from 2014 to 2020. So after today's validation or tomorrow, then we will proceed to to compute that to 2021 and 2022. Total dietary energy supply. You can see in 2014 it was 2,500, 2,500 in 15, 16 still 2,500, 17 2,500. I'm just leaving out the, you can see 2.5, 19 2.5, and then 2020 we have 2.4. So you'll be thinking what will be in 2021. Now even 2022 and then 2023. I think I have a rough idea of what's going to be in 2023. So with this, from 2014 to 2020, after the computation, I will show you the tools that we use to compute this later on. We discovered that Nigeria from 2014 to 2019, Nigeria at least was able to fulfill the requirement provided by FAO. That before you can say that your dietary energy supply is adequate, you must have at least 2,500 score. So Nigeria is having 2,571 in 14, and then by 2020, 2,493. So what do you think is happening to our food situation in the country arising from this? So how do we arrive at this? It is a computation of all this that I've seen, flour, maize, cassava, sorghum, yams, all those things that we've converted using a shiny tool. Our tool is called shiny tool. So there's a tool, you plug in, and then it do the calibration for you. So let's see the output now. That is the table. Now output 2. Output is the table. You have seen the table, but you want to see the output by output. We arrive at this table based on the production data and the utilization, and there is a tool extracted the dietary energy supplies, and you can see that Nigeria at least was relatively okay in 2014 in terms of dietary energy supply, and then by 2020 where we have 2,400, which is massively below. What are the reasons? That's the reason for this meeting. Why do we have negative 16 in 2015-16? Why minus 30? Why minus 23? So we can now look for reasons for that. And then that DES is showing the nutrition, the nutrient content, okay, of a country meeting the FAO requirements. Now, we are now looking at dietary energy supply in terms of the average dietary energy requirement. In this regard, we are now comparing. We have seen what Nigeria had as DES. Then when you are talking about the other, which is the average dietary energy requirement, you are comparing your country with another country. So you may be food sufficient in your own thinking, but when you compare yourself with another country, you will discover that probably you are not food sufficient. That is the essence of this indicator. Cameroon 124, Ghana 142, Niger 119, Nigeria 114. So when you look at these 5 countries, you will see that Nigeria had the least. So DES is okay, but when you compare Nigeria with other countries, you will discover that we are not okay at all. And that's the reason why you see the green, and then you see the yellow. The green is the total dietary for energy, and then the yellow is the average dietary energy requirement in comparison with other countries. So with other countries, we are not doing well. Then we have the self-sufficient ratio and import dependency ratio. What is self-sufficient ratio? It speaks into your domestic production as a country, that are we actually self-sufficient or not. So we look at, we cannot consider all the commodities. So we are taking them commodity by commodity. We look at the cassava and yam, for example. Are we self-sufficient in yam production, in cassava production or not? Are we self-sufficient in other commodities, or we are import dependent on some of these commodities? So we look at cassava and yams and we discover that Nigeria is self-sufficient in the production of yam and cassava. True or false? True or false? I didn't receive correct answer. Then the IDR is the import dependency ratio. You can see it is 0.0000. So we are not importing yam and we are not importing cassava. How about maize and rice production? You can see the red is standing for maize, the blue is for rice. So again, we discover that we are self-sufficient in rice production in 2014 with minimum importation. And then by 2015, you can see the trend. And then finally by 2020, you can see. So when you compare rice importation in 2020 and that of 2015, I think we need to ask question. Why do we have it a little bit higher in 2020 rather than 2014, where we know that we were importing rice massively in that 2014-2015. So it's a food for thought for us to look at that. So you can see that in maize production, we are self-sufficient. In rice production, we are also self-sufficient. We are good. So because we are not really importing. In 2014, you can see the level of importation of rice. Then look at it in 2020. You can see that there's vast difference. So the result shows that we are self-sufficient in maize production and also in rice production. What about wheat? So you can see the result of the wheat. Are we self-sufficient or we are not? We are not self-sufficient in rice, in wheat production. You can see 2014 compared to 2020. You can see we are not really, the domestic production of wheat cannot offset the demand. Write it down and ask me later. Write it down, don't forget. So we discovered that the wheat we are producing in Nigeria is not really good for bread production. It's not good. It's not what the bakery are using. So we have to import wheat, and that's why bread is costly as we speak in the country. We are going to see the import. Where are we importing this? Where is the source of this importation? So generally speaking, when it comes to wheat, the result shows that we are nowhere to be found. Recently, the flour mill collaborated with National Bureau of Statistics to conduct a survey on wheat. I think 17 states. 17 states they discovered that the quantity of wheat produced cannot even be compared to what the bakery, the domestic consumption required. We have the report. I can share with us, or NBS can also share with us before we leave, of the wheat production in Nigeria. A survey that was conducted. So we are import dependent in the wheat production. And this is the graph. Just this one just telling us, you can see the volume of what we import. 2014, 4,600 metric tons. And then look at what we are importing. It's even increasing day by day. We are not making progress in wheat production. And that's where the investor can look and they come in and see how we can actually produce the wheat that is needed for industrial use in the country. It's amazing that what Nigeria is importing from USA is more than what Nigeria is importing from Russia. Okay, you can see that we have Russia, we have Australia. These are the three major sources of wheat importation into the country. Now, with what is going on in Russia now, and then Nigeria tried to shift to Belarus, because Belarus almost have the same climate condition with Russia, but yet we are not really meeting up the domestic demand for wheat in Nigeria. So we can see the list. We have the France, Romania, and Mexico. So these are the countries where Nigeria imports wheat. Okay, and you can also see the percentages. So let's see the output 3. Output 1 is showing to us the table, the general table, the generic, in the generic form. The output 2 shows us the DES, the other, where we are importing, are we food sufficient, are we not food sufficient, in selected cases. Which crop is giving us the best nutritive content, or which crop are we actually consuming more in Nigeria? So that at the end of the day, we can channel our strengths towards that environment. So we discovered that we eat more of cereals. You can see the blue one is a cereal. Am I communicating? Yeah. Rice, beans, whatever. And then after that, we discovered that we consume more of oil crops. Okay? And then sweetening follows. And then because others are too small, we just put them as others. Alright? So, but predominantly, during discovered that we consume more cereals than any other food. And it's being produced virtually all over the country. Now, what about protein? Where do we source our protein? The result shows that we source our protein more from vegetables.
With that, we come to the end of the program Back to Farm, where we explain the Department of Planning and Policy Coordination of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development stakeholders meeting on food balance sheet. On behalf of the crew who made it possible, the like of Shayo on the camera and Buba Ibrahim on the MCR, my name is Joshua Ishaya, thanking you for being a part of it. Have yourself a great time ahead. Bye for now.